It's June 30th, 2024, and I'm with John Jeckovich, World War II, Battle of Bulge as a teenager, shot up with a machine gun through his shoulder, still a shrapnel in his leg. Every time he goes to the airport, the mental alarms go off. And reading his book, Their Mother's Sons, that he wrote well over 20 years ago, and it goes from the time he was like in kindergarten to the time he's fully retired. It goes from his childhood, the Army, basic training, him owning a laundromat, him working at Kimberly, him getting married, him having children, then him finally retiring. How many years have you been retired now, Mr. Jeckovich?
1980.
So you've been retired about 44 years?
Yeah, 1980 I walked off.
Have you enjoyed your retirement?
Huh?
Have you enjoyed your retirement?
Yeah, well.
You enjoyed your retirement. And a lot of people have asked me through emails over the last couple of weeks as reading your book, why did you name the book Their Mother's Sons? Sons. Why did you name it that? What came with it?
But primarily it was in honor of my mother.
Okay, how many sons were there?
There was 3 boys and 1 girl.
Okay, so they're sons, and all 3 of the sons take care of your mother like you did.
No. Stevie was gone. Lucky was drinking all the time. And that was only me.
So
Sally was too young.
So you were the only one that was responsible one.
And then when my father passed away at 43, that left her alone. So I was going to go to school and everything, on GI Bill of Rights. I couldn't go because if I go, she'd be all alone.
Uh-huh. Did you have any other alternative names for the book?
What?
Did you think of any other alternative names before you zeroed in and called it Their Mother's Sons? Were you thinking of any other titles for the book?
Did I figure out other titles?
Were you thinking of any other options in the beginning?
For the title for the book?
Yeah, besides Their Mother's Sons. Did you think of a couple other ones? Do you remember?
Nah, I think that was a good one.
I think that's a good one. And I like you put the picture of your mother on the front page. If your mother was alive today, what would she think of the book?
Who?
Your mother.
Well, she said, well, what do you put my picture in the paper for?
She's a very modest person, wasn't she?
Yeah. Poor soul.
So you've been retired for almost 45 years. And right now you're knocking on the door of almost 100 years old. Does it feel like you blinked your eye and all of a sudden you're old and 100? Did it feel like it went by quickly, or did it feel like you had a very long life?
Thank the Lord I've got good health here so far.
I know, but did it seem like getting to 100, did your whole life go by quickly? Many people say they blink their eyes and they're old. Did it feel
I could see later the bed or something before I fall asleep. I think about what I did when I was 14 years old at home.
No kidding. No kidding.
I had those scooters we played guns with the pistols, put a 2x4 in there, a rubber band.
Yeah, the pistol guns that you made out of old wood and card tubes when you were a little boy, and that was your enjoyment. How do you think the teenagers today would do with a piece of board and an old card tube?
They would never do it.
They never do it.
Then I go to the store and buy $150 a piece of equipment.
Yeah. So do you have any regrets? You're almost 100 years old. Do you have any regrets? People are asking me all the time.
Well, I should have got more schooling.
Right.
I don't regret that about my mother. I took care of my mother reasonably. I took her well.
Other questions I have asked many times were, how long were you married for?
How long was I married for?
Yeah.
69 years.
69 years. Other questions I asked repeatedly, at 100 years old, what do you say that gave you, how did you create such longevity? What was your plan for longevity to go to 100 years old?
I never planned it.
I mean, what did you do in your lifestyle that allowed you to go to 100 years old?
Well, I didn't go into the stupid gas factories, Hooker, the Bedane and all that. I stayed in the, what was it?
Kimberly Clark.
Kimberly Clark.
So you stayed on the
chemical
chemical gas factories, which would have been
I didn't have
harmful
to
to
put
your
a
health.
mask in like two little Tom's doing that. I've got that damn mask in his head. Mouth.
What else do you attribute to your longevity? You didn't work
Genes.
Genes, okay. But what else besides genes? I'll get back to genes. What else besides genes?
I didn't drink, I didn't smoke. Two big factors right there.
Okay. Now let's talk about genes. Let's talk about genes. How old was your father when he died?
43.
How old was your mother when she died?
89.
How old was your brother when he died?
He was 59.
And how old was your other brother, Steve?
Steve was 159, died.
How old was your sister when she died?
She was about 39, 40.
So what do you're like, you lived twice the life as they did. How do you relate that to genes? They all died young. They all died young.
Well, just like they tell you, some were smarter born and others were dumb born.
Did you ever think in your wildest dreams that you'd make it to 100 years old?
I never thought about it. Never thought about
it. Now, one other thing you didn't mention to your longevity is that you jogged for 80 years. You were a runner for 80 years.
Yeah, I run, yeah.
And it wasn't until 2 years ago, when you're approximately 97 or 98,
I couldn't walk.
that your knees gave out.
Yeah.
Your knees gave out. But I think that was a pretty good trade-off. You got good health, your knees gave off. I know you're angry about your knees giving out, but 80 years of running. But you were running before it was fashionable. When you ran, did you have one of these $200 and $300 jumpsuits on or jogging clothes on?
No, I couldn't put overhaul the T-shirt.
And back then, if I remember correctly, jogging was not fashionable.
No.
You were jogging down the road in your boots, corduroy pants. And
they stopped and said, where you go? We'll pick you up. Where you got an emergency someplace?
Yeah, they thought you had an emergency, and other people would throw a can at you and say, hey, you can't afford a car.
Yeah.
They could not comprehend
running.
that you were jogging for health. So you were before your time in that regard. I think all those people that were sarcastic to you when you started jogging 80 years ago, I think they're long been pushing up daisies.
Yeah.
And then also, didn't you start on a health kick in your 20s with wheat germ and things like that?
Yeah, they take all kinds of stuff for people. Yeah.
So you were taking all the health foods?
Yeah. I wasn't getting any health food. I ate the regular food.
Wheat germ, I thought you had.
Huh?
Wheat germ.
Yeah.
I thought you did wheat germ. Okay, also.
I sat with a woman this morning, this morning, no, for supper today. She opened a bag or she opened that wheelbarrow she got there, and she had two that big with all pills in it. Everyone was sexing for a different pill.
Yeah, I was told that you never took a prescription pill in your life. That's amazing. Do you take any aspirins at all or any vitamins? Nothing.
Well, they got me on that stupid blood thinner.
Well, that was just within the last few months, but I'm saying up to almost 100. You never took a prescription, a pill of any type. Did you drink?
No.
Was your brother's a drinker?
Well, Looky was the one. Looky was the problem.
So you don't think you have a drinking problem in your...
Well, how old was Looky when he died?
Young.
Had prostate cancer.
Yeah. Was your father a drinker?
Well, we made the wine, and he had a big barrel down the cellar underneath the stairs. He said, you got to go down and get a glass of wine, a pitcher of wine for supper, that's all.
Yeah, I think that was more the tradition then of people making their own wine and things than being an alcoholic. I think that was just a custom. I think that was just a custom.
Had a bag hanging up on the rail in the down cellar on a rafter, draining it out.
And other people were asking, are you going to be writing another book?
I'm not.
Are you have plans for another book?
I got a couple outlines out, but
And what would be the title? What would be the subject matter if you did?
I had a title in the desk, and I forgot what the hell it was.
What was the subject?
It was a catchy title.
Well, when you think of it, you let me know. Another thing that you're...
Oh, you're not alone, or are you alone, or some stupid thing.
Okay, all right. About loneliness. But another thing that you're before your time, you're certainly before your time of driving, and you got great paybacks on your life going to 100. You're sharp as a tack. You read the newspapers without glasses. You could spell most complex and sophisticated words backwards and forward. You have an unbelievable memory. But another thing that you're before your time was you had SUVs in the early 60s. You had custom-made SUVs by International Motor Cars that they made an SUV where they had 4 doors on an SUV, and now every corner has 10 SUVs. And back then you never seen an SUV.
Yeah, twin tanks and everything.
Yeah, that was you were way before your time.
And even the regular car wasn't 4-wheel drive
And
either.
when you're driving the SUV, it was so big and so unusual. It was green in color. People used to tell you, here comes the green monster.
Yeah.
Because they never seen a big SUV with 4 doors.
Yeah.
And then right after that, you're before your time, is you had International make you a 4-door pickup truck, 4-wheel drive, manual shift. Now every corner, you see 10 or 20 crew cabs, they call them, pickup trucks. But back then, you were the only one.
Yeah.
There wasn't many. So you're before your time. You were before your time in many aspects like that. It was very interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
You're looking chipper today. You want me to start reading, or do you want to read your book today? You're looking chipper today. Did you want to read your book? You want me to read it?
Oh, what?
Your book you wrote. You want me to read it, or do you want to read it?
No, I don't want to read it, no.
Okay, I'll read it. Here we go. We're on chapter 5 of the book that John Jeckovich wrote. It's called Their Mother's Sons. And this is about getting to know you.
Sons.
Sons, yeah, plural, yeah. Their mother's sons. And this is chapter 5, and it's getting to know you. This is about John Jeckovich has been bouncing around from one basic training camp to another as a teenage boy, and he finally got to Camp Breckenridge, which is a stone's throw from Owensboro, Kentucky, and he meets a nice girl there named Ann. And while he has weekend passes, he goes there and visits her. And the interesting thing was, he found Ann this way. He was running late for his bus to get back to camp, and he went in the wrong direction, walking way away from the bus station. He ended up in a residential neighborhood.
Luckily, there were two women sitting outside. I asked them where they're going. She said, we'll drive you there.
So he met 2 girls in a residential neighborhood in the middle of nowhere, and one's name was Ann and the other's name was Mar. So those girls were super friendly. They were a couple years older than this teenage boy, which is basically a boy when he's in the service. And they said, we'll take you there. So he got in the car, and they took him to the bus station. And from that point on, John Jeckovich started dating, not Mar, but Ann. She was a very fine girl. She came from a nice family. Her mother worked in a factory, and her father was killed in an automobile accident, very similar to John Jeckovich's father.
No, I got the write-up of the father. He worked in not a steel mill, but he worked in the factory for a while.
But he died in an automobile accident.
Yeah, well, probably driving around and got hit.
Yeah. And so anyways, John Jeckovich became dating Ann Mahaney, And they were very close. They did not get married before he went to the front lines. And John Jeckovich, they were very, very close. And John Jeckovich told Ann before he shipped out to the front lines that I would call you and I will see you. And unfortunately, John Jeckovich never followed through with that. Interesting point, 80 long years later, 80 long years later, John Jeckovich made good on his promise, and he called Ann in Owensboro, Kentucky, that he hasn't talked to or seen in 80 years, and I'll let you tell us how the conversation went.
What do you mean recently?
How did the yeah, you called her recently.
Well, she was 89 years old.
She was older than that.
Well, and she was feeble. So
You were about 95, so she was about 98.
I had her picture on the wall for years.
You had her picture in your office for years.
Yeah.
So when you called her, how did she sound?
She sounded feeble and old age. I'm thinking of what I knew her when she was younger.
You were thinking her as a 21-year-old
When I talked to her, I got a shock. I think that my age.
Right. But you're thinking of her as a 21-year-old girl.
Yeah.
80 years later, or approximately 80 years later, when you called
I
her.
took her pictures up with my mother's, remember?
You called her, and she answered the phone, because I was right there. She answered the phone, and then the conversation was short. She might have had she might have had Alzheimer's. And then you immediately turned around, and you went to your room, and you removed your office, and you removed her picture off the wall that sat there for so long. The wall under the picture was yellowed because it sat there for so long. And you stuck it in your file cabinet. You wrapped it up nicely. You stuck Ann's picture in the file cabinet. And in its place, it went full circle, you put your mother's picture there.
Yeah.
What a great story. What a great story. Did you want to add anything else to that phone call or what you did?
No.
You did promise you'd call her, but who the hell thought it'd be 80 years later? Who the hell thought it'd be 80? You kept your promise, but 80 years later.
Yeah. Well, I had the kids had a 3 strike because my father died at 43.
Yeah, it's a coincidence.
Yeah.
And her father died young.
Well, Stevie died young.
It was a coincidence. It was a coincidence, how you bumped into her and what a nice relationship you had.
Well, Stevie was drinking.
Oh. Well, that'll hurt you.
He didn't smoke. None of the kids smoked though.
No. That'll put your lights out. Do you want to have any more comments, or you want me to start reading your book?
Now go ahead and start reading.
Okay. Minutes, please.
11.
Okay. So we're on chapter 5. I'm sitting with John Jeckovich, decorated World War II veteran, Purple Heart, and many others. He didn't ever start talking about the war until 24 months ago. And we're on his book, and it's chapter 5, Getting to Know You, and we're talking about Ann. And John Jeckovich was at his last basic training camp in Breckenridge, and he started seeing a girl named Ann, a beautiful young lady, approximately 21, 22. They got along good, and he promised her he'd call her back, but unfortunately it was 80 years later before he called her back. But he did call her back, and he made contact. And then he went off to war, and he went off to probably one of the largest wars, most important war.
W2, yeah.
In World War II, it was Battle of the Bulge. That was the greatest American campaign of World War II. And just to give you an idea of what the Battle of the Bulge was, a lot of young teenage men were slaughtered. And it was as the winter of 1944 tightened its icy grip across Europe, Nazi Germany found itself surrounded by powerful enemies intent on seizing Berlin. Your intent was to seize Berlin,
Yeah.
correct? And crushing the Third Reich once and for all. So this is like the granddaddy of battles.
Yeah.
You guys are trying to get into Berlin to crush the Third Reich. Yet despite its precarious situation, Hitler, Germany, was far from defeated. And Hitler knew it, clinging to his last shred. Hitler was clinging to his last shred of hope. He devised a plan, an audacious plan to strike at his allies in the West in a bid to drive a wedge between them and turn the tide of war in Germany's favor. Hitler thought by attacking during the bitter winters of December 1944, where the young men can't even dig a damn trench, can't dig a damn foxhole, the ground is frozen, Hitler thought he'd slaughter a lot of young men. Summoning thousands of men and machines, Hitler commanders prepared to unleash one final assault, an onslaught that would catch the Allies off guard and remind the world that if Germany was beaten, many more people would have to perish first. So Hitler's idea at this point is all or nothing. All or nothing.
Yeah.
If I'm going to go down, I'm taking everybody with me.
Yeah,
This was the granddaddy. Hitler says, I'm going to win this war.
Yeah.
But if I don't win this war,
Well, he lost the last war, World War I, yeah.
but Hitler said, if I don't win this battle of the Bulge, I'm going to take a lot of you people with me. It's going to be a bloodbath. That's what Hitler said. The Battle of Bulge would prove to be a vicious struggle right to the end. Hitler had those young kids, those young German soldiers out right to the bitter end. He was sending in paratroopers, the SS, anything Hitler could throw at it.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why when you were shot up at the Battle of Bulge, when you had a machine gun go through your shoulder and come out the other end, and then you had shrapnel in your leg, that's why they sent you to Paris, and you weren't no exception. Minutes?
7.
And you weren't no exception. When they sent you to Paris all bloodied, they basically told you and everyone else, once you're out of this hospital, if you could walk, if you could still walk, if you pull a trigger, you're not going back to the United States. You're going back to the front line.
Yeah.
And that's what they did to you. Could you expand on that, how you were
I went
shot?
back with bandages on.
Could you expand how you're crawling to the snow when you're hit by the snipers?
Yeah.
Tell us what happened. And you're shooting yourself with morphine.
Well, I was weakened physically because of the stuff I went through before that. And then they said, well, look, you go back on the line. And I still have bandages on my shoulder and my leg.
You think they would ever do that in today's army?
Sure.
No, today's army.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because didn't you crawl in the snow for a while and you had a sniper and you had enough?
Well, I got shot. A sniper shot me across the street at the second, third floor window. He shot me, and when the blood started running, snow there, I left the trail blood.
Uh-huh.
So that Army nurse in the evac hospital, evac camp there, ran out and said, Johnny, I'll get you back. She pulled me back under the fire. 21 years old.
Yeah, a pure angel.
How did you get rid of that sniper, though? How the sniper?
Tell us how you got rid of the sniper.
Huh?
Tell us how you got rid of
Well, I had my carbine, and luckily I had a full clip on. So I shot the whole clip at that window. I took half the window and half the side of the house down.
So he got
I
his
must
due.
have got him, yeah. Unless he ran down the stairs.
He got his due. And did you also carry a shotgun with you also?
A what?
A shotgun. Did you also have a shotgun?
They gave me a shotgun. I never used it.
But you're assigned to heavy machine guns. That's what you're assigned to. That's what your assignment was. Heavy machine guns, right?
Heavy weapons, yeah.
And that's machine guns, right?
The heavy weapons was mortars and machine guns.
Minutes?
I was in the second platoon. Heavy weapons. I was
Okay.
machine guns.
And getting back to the casualties and what a brutal war this was, Hitler says, you know, if you're going to get me, I'm going to get you. I'm going to destroy a lot of people. And the casualty figures for the Battle of Bulge as a whole are difficult to determine. But according to the Department of Defense, there are 80,500 American casualties, and other estimates vary them at between 70,000
For what?
casualties, and between 70,000 and 108,000.
What, during the war?
Yeah, casualties.
During the Battle of the Bulge.
And of the 89,000 official figure, 19,000 were killed and 47,500 were wounded and 23,000 were missing. What do you think happened to all the missing guys? 23,000 missing.
They all took off. Both of them took off. They got shot in the woods someplace. It snowed in. Nobody ever picked them up.
And I was reading that when the SS was capturing the young Americans, instead of taking them as prisoners of war, the SS were just killing them on the spot.
Oh yeah.
And that didn't go too well. The SS would just kill the young Americans. They're supposed to be prisoners of war, and they kill them on the spot.
And if they did have them in the camp, they treated them roughly. They didn't feed them or nothing. Because when we came in, the medics said, don't feed them. Don't feed them.
Why not?
Well, because they didn't have the right diet for so long.
So they weren't treated properly at all. They're treated like dogs.
They were all skin and bone.
With the Allied forces were involved, the Battle of Bulge was very much an American's victory, and America made its biggest sacrifice to ensure the Allies' triumph.
No, that Battle of Bulge, Americans were in a rest area. They were in a rest area trying to get over the winter. And they were in a rest area, and they had their guard off, and that's what Hitler seen it, and he ran in.
And Britain's casualty figures, for example, were around 1,400. The German High Command recorded their casualties at 84,834, and other sources putting at the Germans' casualties at between 60,000 and to 100,000.
Oh, when they got into Germany, yeah, they had a lot of casualties, yeah. The Germans, that was their native land.
After the Battle of Bulge, Americans' generals grew more cautious. Minutes?
2.
To British General Sir Frederick Morgan, Americans are not brought up the disaster as are the British, to whom this was more an incident and rough road towards the final victory. So basically, if Europe didn't have the American soldiers, it would have been in bad trouble.
The what?
If during the battles in Europe, if the Europeans didn't have the American soldiers, they would be in big trouble.
Not so much as in the South Pacific. The Japanese treated those people terrible there.
No, I'm talking about without the help of the American soldiers in Europe during World War II, Europe would have been in bad shape.
Yeah, American and German?
Yeah, the Americans helped out greatly during World War II. Even though we're an ocean away from them.
Who helped us?
The Americans helped the Europeans.
Oh yeah, they liberated France, yeah. In fact,
and they took over Berlin during the Battle of the Bulge.
Huh?
And they took over Berlin in the Battle of the Bulge. But the Battle of Bulge was Hitler's last effort.
And they caught the Americans off guard because the Americans were laying off. They thought the war was over and they lost their guard. And that's when they went in.
5 seconds. 55 seconds.
Because this was Hitler's last chance. And he said, if I can't win it, you're all coming with me. And so what finally happened to Hitler?
Well, he went up to that Luskar, his famous castle up on the hill, and killed himself.
Yeah, his soldiers are living like pigs, and he's up in his mega castle. He even had decorated silverware and glasses with his name on it.
Yeah.
This guy was unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, and how did he kill himself?
Took a pill.
And how did
his girlfriend took a pill too. No, his girlfriend gave him the pill, then she took it.
Well,
Wrap it up.
I guess he was a coward at the end.
Yeah.
Seconds?
It's